And yet we have the marketplace, don't we, of books now. Books that are not even meant to be read. They're doorstops is the big joke, but really what they are is they're saviors of industry. A good example is the one I'm reading now. I'm about almost exactly halfway through this book, which is 705 pages long, and which has come out this very year, the COVID year, in hardback, and it is a debut novel. It's a debut novel. They allowed somebody this many pages for their very first novel. And one would probably ask, did they have an editor then? Because if it's a debut novel and it's that big, well, wow. Well, the person is a famous, he's a well-known screenplay writer. His screenplays are unusual. They are very creative and outside the norm. And his name is Charlie Kaufman. And this is his debut novel, Antkind. And I've just picked it up from City Lights Books. I want to encourage every single person who's anywhere near San Francisco right now to make your way to City Lights. Buy a bunch of books. Do it today. We need to keep certain businesses in the post-COVID circumstance not only alive but thriving, or they end up sincerely demeaning our intellectual culture and space. Anyway, so I picked up Antkind. Some comedic things to note. Charlie Kaufman apparently came to City Lights during the COVID time to visit and sign copies. I'm guessing it was during Litquake, which I heard was online. I didn't have a chance to follow along, but they had Litquake 2020, COVID version. So he may have come in town for that. But what's cool is I got as a result of that, let's see if I can make this happen. It's kind of perfect. I got a signed copy. Isn't that great? So, this is one of those books that we're talking about when we talk about industry, the publishing industry and literary world, but it also becomes a part of the movie world, the visual learning that we were talking about earlier. Because we are all moving toward, we watch a ton of movies, we watch a ton of TV shows, we read a little in short bursts, but we don't read long anymore, and the literary world has suffered tremendously for this. And every year it has to produce some big object. Right before Christmas, that has to happen. Or they're in trouble. A big hardback that people will buy and wrap and gift to someone who they know as a reader. I know you love reading, so I got you this. And that book will be on shelves all over the place. And very few will actually read it. Or we can say a small percentage will read it, right? Maybe of the, let's say this book sells 20,000 copies this Christmas holiday season. And that's 2020 January, and we're all going to be getting back to normal, hopefully, or a little more, at least making it work coming up with the change in the administration and in the sort of everybody starting to understand what's going on with COVID and how much we failed at it. We're going to be doing things more, I think. So those 20,000 copies, how many people do you think? 2,000 will read this cover to cover? Which is a debut novel from Charlie Kaufman, one of the weirdest minds, quirkiest, most intellectually kind of abrupt minds in our filmic history. This is the man who wrote Being John Malkovich, Adaptation, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Synecdoche, New York, which is just like, what? The extent to which Spike Jonze and he and certain white men in this culture just get to do stuff often, flowers into massively, masturbatorially, navel-gazing weirdness, within which nuggets of brilliance, comedy, art happen. And that's why it's necessary, right? Maybe no one will understand that, but I find it necessary. So, the comedic aspect here is that Charlie Kaufman will have written a book has written a book, a novel, and it is published by a Random House, and this novel will be bought by, thousands, shall we say, of people in Los Angeles who will never read it, but they'll know it's supposed to be on their shelf. Thousands of screenplay writers who will buy it but never read it because they know it's supposed to be on their shelves. Or maybe they'll get this far, or this far, or this far, or this far, and or this far, and yet it'll be in this space in Los Angeles and in New York. It's functioning in New York as an object that must sell in order to help the literary community, even though I know many literary critics would find this appallingly bad in many ways, because it is a debut novel filled with bizarre mechanisms that meant that editing it was next to impossible without affecting the creative spirit of the guy who's just burping the stuff out. So within it, you have also critiques of predominantly film here, which I think is, and people who make movies and stuff, and LA culture and those things. But he has the guts, the stones, if you will, to step toward the literary world in that way too. Because come on, he has just dominated cultural aspects of the filmic, right? These films are uniquely creative and, too clever by half, So this is a very intriguing space that he has created for himself, and it's hysterically funny a lot of the time. But you have to plow through just pages and pages of, I don't know what you want to call it. But we did this before, right? We did this with the Beats. We did this with a lot of people who wanted to get everything out like that. I did that when I was a young writer. Anyway, hilarious, fun, for the right person. Antkind by Charlie Kaufman. And then I picked a selection by one of the staff there. The Chicago Tribune called this a mysterious work of metafiction, dizzying, arresting, and defiantly bold. This book is by N.J. Campbell, Campbell. The title of the book is Found Audio, and it is published as a trade paperback by, looks like something called $2 Radio, Books Too Loud to Ignore. Look at that, that's pretty cool. And A Wild, Wonderful Creature, part Borges, part Vandermeer, part forgotten 70s psychedelic action movie, convincing, complex, and emotionally resonant. This is a book not to be missed, says Christian Kiefer in the blurbishness. Found Audio. So I picked that up because I know nothing about it. It looked fascinating, and I trust the people at City Lights Books, because when you go to City Lights Books, you've got the Ferlinghetti, tree, if you will, of culture, valuable to us all. And speaking of, the granddaddy, Paul Bowles, as you all know, who follow me, all you thousands and millions of my followers know, because of your beloved deep consideration of everything I say and do, and thank you so much for that, honestly, genuinely. I could not be more proud of my millions of followers. Paul Bowles transcribed the words of a man sitting on a mat in Morocco, whose name was Mohamed Mrabet. And these are stories, oral stories told, and then taped by, and then translated by one of the United States and New York's most badass, intellectual, cultural, cool guys, Paul Bowles, and it's called Mashish. And that art, apparently, on the cover is also by Mohamed Mrabet. And this is great. I just started flipping through. Talk about a way to break the mind when you're too trapped in the Western thing. Bowles does that so beautifully, and always has for me. He died in 99. I'll never forget it. Just as on the cusp, if you will, of the Christian's new millennium, meaninglessness of the 21st, blah, blah. Well, they named it all that so they could have 20 years of nonsense so far, it turns out, right? The 21st century sucks. Let's go back. I want to party like it's 1999. I bought a copy of Charles Mingus's Beneath the Underdog, one of my all-time favorite musical biographical novels. I'm going to gift this to someone. I'm not sure whom. I called a friend. I was at the bookstore and going, look, I'm spending money at City Lights because I want them to stay in existence. I'm concerned about City Lights. I'm going to buy a bunch of books. You want some stuff? And he says, yeah, I'm interested in these two topics. And I go, okay. And then as I'm walking around, I see this and go, hey, do you ever read this? He writes back, of course I've read that. So now I have a copy, even though he's read it. And I might give it to someone else who hasn't read it. Or I may just keep it because it's such a pleasure to feel the mind of Charles Mingus come through the pages of that thing. Is such an unbelievable pleasure. And speaking of books I bought for someone else, I bought this for my lawyer. Of course, I read this many, many years ago. It is the Autobiography of a Brown Buffalo. Before his mysterious disappearance and probable death in 1971, we don't know, no one knows, Oscar Zeta Acosta was famous as the Robin Hood-like Chicano lawyer and notorious as the real-life model for Hunter S. Thompson's Dr. Gonzo. He was the Samoan lawyer in the books and so on. But he wrote his own two novels. This is the first. And I bought this for my lawyer, Mark, because I think he might enjoy it. A Burning is a new novel, excellently crafted, utterly thrilling, a stunning debut, another debut novel, contrasted with the one written by Charlie Kaufman. This one I think might be pretty dang good. It's called A Burning by Megha Majumdar. It is a quietly beautiful and devastating book, according to Tommy Orange. Its tone and pacing are measured perfectly. It's as funny as it is sad. This book won't let you go, and you won't want it to end. Amitav Ghosh, the rather well-known Indian novelist, says, Megha Majumdar's A Burning is the best debut novel I have come across in a long time. Somehow Majumdar succeeds in capturing the boundless energy and starry-eyed hopefulness of India's youth. A Burning signals the arrival of a new voice of immense talent and promise. I'm quite excited to read that one, which is a brand new one. And I was telling you, oh right, everybody's been talking about this in the meanwhile, Homeland Elegies by Akhtar. Salman Rushdie said, an unflinchingly honest self-portrait by a brilliant Muslim-American writer, and beyond that, an unsparing examination of both sides of that fraught, hyphenated reality. This is Homeland Elegies. I think you must have heard about it by now. They've been talking about it on all kinds of TV shows and so. Well, so for my friend James, who asked for books about mycology and about sustainable development, I chose, they didn't have anything really good on mycology. And so I chose two books about sustainability and the future and what we're doing on this planet. And those are Bill McKibben's Earth, eaarth. We've waited too long to stop the advance of global warming, and massive change is not only unavoidable, but already underway. So, Bill McKibben, Francis Moore Lappé, EcoMind. Pivotal in the most literal sense, says Molly Katzen. As I read it, I find myself turning the crucial 180 degrees from frustration and fear to a sense of constructive possibility. So that's always useful. So I picked those two for my friend James. And I bought a couple of blank books. They have nice blank books with the drawing of the, or a photo of the, for journaling purposes, So there you go. A little trip to the bookstore yielding some wonderful, wonderful, wonderful books that I'm excited to gift and to plow through. The one I'm reading currently, which no one will read, Antkind by Charlie Kaufman. I would like very much to have a discussion with those who do read this at some point. Actually, that's not even true. I think anybody who reads this doesn't want to have a discussion with anyone else who reads it. There's only one person you want to have a discussion with about this book, and that's